Nintendo is going to be announcing their new console, the Nintendo Switch 2, any day now. The discussion regarding this system has been going on for a while, as it's the biggest thing happening in the Nintendo space right now. But over the last year or so since the conversation really started to heat up, I've become tired of it. As much as I'm very excited about this new console and all the great games that will come with it, discussion online surrounding it has stopped being fun for me to the point where I've started caring a lot less. I know that when the console is officially announced, I will be all over it and will most likely be insanely hyped. But right now, I'm in this weird in-between state. I want the console to be announced so we can finally hear more about it, but I'm also willing to wait. They could announce it on March 31st, the last day of their fiscal year, which is when they said they would announce it by, and I would still be happy. After I get this video out, I'm probably just not gonna pay much attention to any Switch 2 rumors, leaks, or discussions until the console is officially announced. But why is this? I mean, this should be an exciting time, right? Why am I so apathetic towards the announcement of the successor to my favorite game console of all time? Well, that's what this video is all about. I'm using this video to share my opinions surrounding all of this Switch 2 discourse and try to see if anyone else feels similarly to me. Don't take this video as being negative towards the system or anything, because really there isn't much to criticize about a console that hasn't even been announced. This video is more so talking about the discussion online within the fanbase and Nintendo's approach to talking about this new system. And also, I hate to even say this because I feel like it should be implied, but this video is just my opinion and isn't attempting to attack anybody. So without further ado, let's get into it. What exactly do I mean by this? Well, when I say the system itself, I'm talking about the main concept and selling point behind it. Despite nothing being officially announced, there is a lot we already know about the console because of the leaks. However, I won't be going into the specifics of any leaks today because they aren't that important to the conversation and I'm bound to get a bunch of things wrong. What we broadly know about the Switch 2 is that it will ultimately just be a more powerful Switch with some new Joy-Cons and most likely some new features here and there that we won't know about until it's officially announced. And these are all things that we've pretty much known for a while. Sure, there's been more supposed leaks about the console and controllers recently, but we know what this console is and what it's gonna be about. However, you could say this about every new Nintendo system announced since the rise of the internet. We knew about the glasses-free 3D of the 3DS, the controller with a screen on it for the Wii U, and the home console handheld hybrid features of the Switch, all well before they were officially announced. But those features were a lot more interesting to discuss because they were different things. But with the Switch 2, it seems to be exactly what it is, a Switch 2. Don't get me wrong though, this is not a bad thing. In fact, I'd say it's exactly what Nintendo needs to do to keep up the momentum of the Switch. The gimmick of the Switch, which I wouldn't even consider to be a gimmick at all, is worth simply doing again because of how much of a selling point it is. I'm sure there are new features about the system we don't know about yet that will make it more than just another Switch, but those will most likely have to wait until the console is announced. So yeah, not being completely revolutionary isn't a bad thing by any means, but it does make the discussion surrounding the system less exciting. Cause yeah, at the end of the day, it will be very similar to the Switch 1, and the games are mostly going to be what sells the console. It makes it so we're in this weird limbo where a lot of people want to talk about the Switch 2, but there's not really that much to discuss, so we're all just kind of waiting for Nintendo to announce something. Speaking of, the Nintendo Switch was officially announced as the Nintendo NX all the way back in March of 2015, almost 2 years before the system would launch. It wouldn't be until over a year and a half later in October 2016 that the system would be officially revealed. However, there were some small mentions of the system in between, such as Nintendo stating the console would launch in March 2017, and Breath of the Wild being confirmed for the system at E3 2016. Plus, the Wii U was still relatively new when they announced the existence of a new console, console less than 2.5 years after it launched, and there were still plenty of big system-selling games to be released in between, such as Super Mario Maker, Splatoon, and Yoshi's Woolly World. My point in bringing this all up is to highlight the differences between how the Switch and the Switch 2 were initially confirmed by Nintendo. The Switch was first mentioned a year and a half before it was fully revealed, while it's been only 8 months since the Switch 2 was confirmed. However, the main difference is the state of the current consoles at the time. The Wii U still had several big games coming out for it and was a relatively new console when the NX was announced. However, the Switch 2 was confirmed over 7 years after the Switch 1 launched and was at a time when very few big games were actually releasing. People had been expecting a statement from Nintendo for months at this point, and the one they gave only provided a rough announcement date and no information about the console itself other than the fact that it existed. Since then, it's been completely radio silent from Nintendo, with the only mention of the Switch 2 being that it won't be mentioned in things like Nintendo Directs. This very long wait with basically no official news about the console other than that it exists this late into the Switch's life means that lots of people are getting antsy. And now we're at the point where there most likely won't be any new information about the console until that big official reveal. I'd say the wait for the Switch 1 to be revealed was worse because of the state of Nintendo at the time, but it was also more exciting. I mean, yeah, the Wii U generation sucked, but Nintendo seemed to be cooking up a brand new idea and there was something hopeful to look forward to. Now, with the Switch 2, it's kinda just like, yeah, there's gonna be a new Switch coming out, and it's probably gonna do well because it's the Nintendo Switch 2. It's just less exciting to speculate and talk about because at this point we're just playing a very long waiting game. I really don't think Nintendo should have made a deadline of sorts for them to announce it at the time that they did because it just set people's expectations for it to be announced well before that. The statement they made about the Switch 2 being announced before March 31st was in early May of 2024, almost 11 months before that deadline. So I don't think it's out of the question that people would assume it would be announced before then. At the time, I would have bet money that the system was going to be announced in the late summer or early fall because we didn't know of any games coming out for the holidays. In hindsight, it makes sense why they didn't announce the console in 2024 because there were still some new games coming out and they didn't want to tank their final console sales for the holidays. But Nintendo made that statement before they announced all those new games, which then made people disappointed since it was clear the system wasn't going to be released or most likely even announced in 2024. If I were Nintendo, I would have made a statement earlier in 2024 when the discussion really started to heat up, just confirming that the system exists. No statement about when it will be announced or released, and nothing about the console itself. Just a, hey, we are making a new system, don't worry, let us cook. Then, maybe in August or September after the June Direct, make another statement saying it will be unveiled before March 31st, 2025. Setting that deadline when we were closer to it would have made fans less inclined to believe the system would be announced well before then. Plus, since a lot of new games had been announced for the holidays, it would have communicated to fans that 2024 wasn't going to have any more Switch 2 news. Instead, fans got their hopes up earlier in the year, which led to a bit of disappointment when the console hadn't been announced before this year. At the end of the day though, does any of this really matter? No. I mean, a few months of extra waiting without any news won't hurt anyone. Plus, we had some great games released for the holidays last year, so it's not like there wasn't anything to play or discuss that was Nintendo related. I'd personally be fine with Nintendo waiting until the very last minute to announce the console because I want it to be the best it can be. But not everyone is completely fine with that, which leads me to my third and final point. This is honestly the main reason why I made this video. Sure, everything I've mentioned so far has been a factor in why I haven't been interested in discussing the Switch 2, but it's mostly the fanbase that has me directing my attention elsewhere. I'm not talking about all of the Nintendo fanbase, I'm talking about a very small but very loud minority that has made discussing the console straight up not fun at times. So many people out there seem to have the inability to be patient when it comes to waiting for this system. I know the wait can be annoying at times, especially because it's been so long since we've heard anything about the new system, but I promise complaining in Twitter replies, spamming Switch 2 in the live chat during Nintendo Directs, or commenting "why no Switch 2" under every single one of their videos is not going to make them release it any sooner. It's just gotten so annoying and tiring to keep seeing this, especially under stuff that I care about. When Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition was announced late last year, I was ecstatic because I've wanted to play the game for a while and it makes the entire series available on Switch. While many people shared my sentiment, there were also a lot of people who instantly pivoted the conversation to being about Switch 2, or even complained that Nintendo didn't announce it when it wouldn't have made any sense for them to do so at the time. When Nintendo announced Alarmo, which was clearly a passion project made by Nintendo employees, people made fun of it because it wasn't Switch 2. Being in the Nintendo space is just so exhausting right now because it feels like the Switch 2 is all people are talking about. I understand that it is the big Nintendo thing to discuss at the moment, but considering there hasn't even been any new information to analyze about it, I almost wonder how people can even talk about it this much. People are also getting their hopes up over quote-unquote leaked announcement dates that have no credibility behind them, and then take it out on Nintendo when it doesn't happen like it's their fault. As more and more credible leaks have started to come out about the system, many have expressed that Nintendo should just announce the darn thing already. We already know everything about it, but it's not that simple. It's not like the higher-ups at Nintendo have the trailer ready and are just sitting there twiddling their thumbs until they feel like posting it. Announcing a brand new console like this is a huge deal, and so much more goes into it than we'll ever know. And suggesting that we know everything about the console because of these supposed leaks is just not true at all. I like to take all leaks, even ones that are deemed extremely credible, with a grain of salt, especially when it comes to new hardware. But assuming that everything we've seen recently is true, there is still so much to be announced regarding the system. Just because we know the internal specs and what the controllers look like does not mean everything is revealed. There are going to be new features both internally and externally that we don't know about fully. We don't know what the UI and the style of the console is going to be, and of course, the games. We know nothing when it comes to Nintendo games coming out on Switch 2. There is still so much to be unveiled, which means they can't just drop all of their plans and do it right now because a few thousand people saw some leaked images. I'm completely fine with waiting until Nintendo is ready, and if that's on March 31st, 2025, so be it. The console will get announced when it gets announced, and being upset or annoyed or impatient towards Nintendo isn't going to change that. I'm stepping back from talking about this system for a while. The lack of big new ideas, the long wait, and the small minority of the fanbase that isn't afraid to share their opinions have made it borderline exhausting to even exist in the Nintendo space right now. But this entire thing doesn't necessarily have to be a negative. We are in a calm before a storm right now, so I'm gonna enjoy it, and I think you guys should too. We need to enjoy the last few months we have with the Switch being the newest Nintendo console. Maybe go back and play some big games you missed out on, or revisit your favorites. It doesn't even have to be Nintendo stuff, just enjoy the quiet we have right now. I'm taking the beginning of the year while there isn't a lot going on to work on some games in my backlog that I've been wanting to play for a while. Instead of all of us anxiously waiting for what's next, I think we should appreciate the generation we're in right now before it's all over. I think that the Switch 2 can be the best Nintendo console yet, which I'm very excited for, but I don't think I'm quite ready to move on from the system that catapulted Nintendo back into the spotlight. So take your time, Nintendo. I'll be here when you're ready to show your hand. But until then, I'm just gonna focus on what we have right now. See you soon, old friend. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I decided to go back to an older style, like what I did with my 3DS and Steam Deck video for this one, just to try it out again, see how it would do and everything. And I've had this idea bouncing around in my head for a while now, so I figured, I'll make it into a video, do a little shorter thing. I was gonna wait until like later this week to post this actually. I was thinking like Friday, like a week after my last big video. But now there's all these rumors that the Switch 2 is gonna be announced on Thursday. So I figured I'd get it out as soon as possible. Cause yeah, I wrote the whole thing and did the voiceover and started editing all before that whole rumor thing started coming out. So I was, really bad timing on my part. Now, do I think the rumors are true? I am more inclined to believe they are true this time because of how many people are reporting on it, but at the end of the day, it is just Nate the Hate saying things, which, not that I don't trust him or anything, but like, yeah, it is kind of just like a bunch of people saying something that makes sense. But yeah, if it gets announced on Thursday, I will be happy, of course. I will be extremely excited, and I will be making a video on it, do not worry. But it also means that this video was very poorly timed. Regardless though, I hope you enjoyed it, and now I promise I'm working on Pikmin 4. I can't say it'll be next just in case the Switch 2 gets announced in 2 days, but it will be soon. Pikmin 4 Part 2, it's coming, I promise.